What poppin' people, it's your boy Zero, aka Black, Natsuki, Subaru, or Goku. It's Subaru today. We're in the Subaru fit. Anyway, we are here with Arc 9, Chapter 23. The gang's all here, live reading. So, well, I guess it's technically not live because I'm not doing it live. I'm recording it and then I'm gonna upload it for y'all. But either way, you get the shtick. Last chapter was fucking heat. Like, this entire, see, I just had it's a little snack. This entire arc has been wild so far, and I'm not even technically caught up. So, without deliberating any further, you guys already know. I'm bricked up. You're bricked up. Let's be bricked up together as we read Arc 9, Chapter 23. The gang's all here. All right, man. This is some good illustration. Like, or who did this? Who did the art? Roka. Nice. I am a tad bit on the warm side. I think I'm gonna close my door. Oh. All right. Let's pick up where we left off. By the time Ramji had woken up, several hours had already passed since the retreat from the siege in the forest. In the end, they only took felt with them and left the rest of us alone. This is what happens when we pick a fight. It's lame as hell. I was about to say that was rations. That had to be rations. So added Rations, who had just finished reporting the damages to their camp to the recently awoken Ramji. Rations was unable to hide his feelings of embarrassment, and it was easy to imagine that sense of defeat stirring in his chest. Of course, the same sense of defeat was also present within Ramji's wide chest. However, Ramji had experienced far more lost battles through his life than Rations. The number of losses I got under my belt's pathetic. Nothing to be proud of. If Ramji were to count the victories in his life on his fingers, would he even require both hands? Damn. Even if he could achieve smaller victories, he always came out losing by the end of the war. That was the win-loss record of the old giant who had wasted his years. I wouldn't say he wasted it. I gotta read EX, bro. I really gotta tap in and read EX, the Wilhelm shit. 'Cause I know I'm gonna get more info about Stride, freaking Rom, or Valga, Cromwell. Like, it's man. And then like more shit about Theresia. But I digress. Yeah, we're right here. It can be said that surviving and enduring the shame that followed had led Ramji to happen across something irreplaceable in his life. However, he had now been deprived of that irreplaceable thing. What's Felt's situation? The best way to find out is about that. Unfortunately, they dealt with Manfred's divine protection of Farsight. It ain't just the helmet bastard. The maid he had with him seemed pretty sharp too. I guess he's lucky he got away with only his eye gouged out. Who? Who got their eye gouged out? Sheesh. Manfred? Damn. Forgot about that. As I thought. They didn't leave that be. I suppose that was an unreasonable expectation. The aforementioned divine protection of Farsight was a highly practical divine protection in terms of possible tactics and strategies that allowed the user to locate and monitor a target's location from afar. It had been used by Manfred Madison who served as the head of the balance of the union of the Flanders criminal underworld that had cooperated with Felt's group. Jeez, hold on. My bad, chat. Had a little tickle in my throat. However, the divine protection of Farsight itself was not born upon him, but rather he had gained it as a result of stealing it from someone it had been bestowed onto. The Black Silver Coin and the Flower Prison Garden were also organizations deeply rooted in Flanders, but the balance was different. It was a notorious group with a long and shady history that existed outside of the city. Most notably, the balance possessed a technique to steal divine protections. Ramji speculated that they had likely kept the original holder of the divine protection alive, having a proxy use the body part that served as the source of their divine protection. In short, if a divine protection holder possessing the divine protection of Farsight, which affected the eyes, had their eyes removed or transplanted, the effects of that divine protection could be freely inherited. Of course, one could not just remove their eyeball and replace them to use a divine protection at will. Therein lay the secret technique possessed only by the balance, sacrament never to be revealed to outsiders. Regardless of the technique, if the eyeballs that served as the source of the divine protection of Farsight were destroyed, then relying on Manfred to continue tracking Felt's movement was no longer an option. Still, with Manfred's missing an eye, and the rest of us in such terrible condition, it's a miracle we're all alive, ain't it? Miracle, huh? I just can't accept it like that. Ratchins loudly clicked his tongue in a dissatisfied manner at the muttering of Ramji, who was rubbing his chin. They had taken... I'm really trying to figure out, like, who the fuck was Manfred? It wasn't the pig dude. Yeah, it's been a minute since I read this. I'm trying to put a name to the face. Anyway. They had taken onto this challenge with the determination to risk their lives, and they survived. As one would expect, Ratchins would not say anything about regretting not being able to die like someone from the Empire would, but since he had lost to an opponent who had imposed unnecessary restrictions on themselves, Ram could understand the feeling of being shown he was clearly outmatched in power. It's different. I mean, I get it, but this motherfucking Al has his authority. I wonder what he calls his. Anyway, but if he was able to feel that frustration after giving it his all, then Ratchin still had a future ahead of him. It was surely the same for Gaston and Camberley. Ram-sama, are you awake? That you, Grassus? And just as the conversation came to a halt, Grassus suddenly appeared. At the end of the table... Oh, it's a girl? Oh. At the end of the table, she had last been seen tied up by the thread user called Ye, but she seemed to be in much better condition than Ratchins from the looks of it. Despite their young appearances, she and her sister... Oh, is it twins? She and her sister Flam had been trained by the Astrea family from birth, ranking them in the upper echelon of the many combatants that Ramji had ever met. Her excellent control of the flow method greatly contributed to the recovery of her wounds and physical strength, so she already seemed to have fully recuperated. Don't go using that as an excuse to be reckless, though. How's your divine protection looking? It's almost ready to be used again, if Flam is not dead. Don't jinx it like that. Wait, I can give a better delivery. Don't jinx it like that! But I can't say for sure if she's alive. Even if the helmet bastard didn't lay a hand on her, Reinhardt and the witch are still in the sand dunes. Ratchin-sama, cheer up, okay? Or alright? Why am I the one being comforted? You're the one who should be upset. Grassus, how do you, Grassus? I'm just gonna say Grassus. Grassus gave Ratchins a light pat on his head hunchback, only for the latter to snap at her. sticking out his long tongue in frustration. At his outburst, Grasses let out a casual "Wah!" without looking at the least bit startled. Instead, she swiftly slipped behind Ramji, peeking out from behind him with a dramatic, sulky glare at the childish young man. It was their usual playful banter, but Ramji simply placed a large hand, bigger than the girl's head, on her and gently ruffled her hair. We're all feeling the same concern for those at the tower. Once your divine protection's ready, let us know immediately. Acknowledged. Who even talks like that? Accepting Ramji's hand, Grasses gave a brief nod, while Ratchins overreacted as usual. It was precisely because their antics led to Ratchins displaying such immediate results that the mischievous sisters always had a field day teasing him. But perhaps acting like nothing was wrong was what Gracias needed right now. And for Ratchins, it kept him from spiraling into an endless cycle of defeat-induced frustration. Young'un should burn with a defiant spirit, reflecting on this is my job. Despite gathering an army of 500 men and carefully choosing the most advantageous battlefield possible, Ramji and the others had lost their fight against the helmet bastard, and Felt had been taken hostage. It was a devastating defeat. No doubt the worst since the Demi-Human War. However, if there was one thing that set this loss apart from Ramji's past failures, it was the fact that this time, it was neither entirely fruitless nor completely unforeseen. Though it was a method they had hoped to avoid. The possibility of the helmet bastard summoning the divine dragon in a moment of desperation had been a constant concern. Given that, Felt's existence had always been considered a potential shackle to prevent such an outcome. And they had known beforehand that the divine dragon Volcanica was the helmet bastard's main force. Thus, even if Felt's group had been unable to defeat the helmet bastard in this battle, they had at least set a minimum goal of shackling his strongest asset. Of course, the ideal outcome would have been victory, but they had still met their lowest expectations. And on top of that, they now had a clearer understanding of the nature of his authority. If victory was the best possible result, then this was the second best. No, with Felt taken hostage, it was more like the third best outcome. That said, now that he's experienced it firsthand, the same method won't work to break his authority again. Felt's in his hands now. We'll need to get creative with our approach. Naturally, Ramji had no intention of giving up here. The helmet bastard had chosen not to take their lives for his own reasons. Because of that, most of their fighting force had remained intact, giving them the room to come up with a plan and strike once more. No one would dare call making full use of this opportunity cowardly or dishonorable. For whatever reason, the helmet bastard seemed unwilling to waste even a moment standing still. At this rate, even if he takes short breaks, he won't have the chance to get some proper rest anywhere. Mental exhaustion will only expose the weakness in his authority. If Felt's shackling the divine dragon, then our opening's even bigger. Surprisingly, seems like that helmet bastard and his allies ain't as united as they. Muttering to himself, Ramji carefully processed the information he had gathered from the battle with his larger than most head. If one were to accuse him of being calculating right after their loss, he had no excuse. But in Ramji's mind, their defeat was already over. His thoughts had shifted toward the next battle, and strategies were already taking shape. There might be some who would curse that as cold-hearted. Felt, who was practically his granddaughter, had been abducted, and he could not even be sure of her safety. Despite that, rather than turning his thoughts to concern and anxiety, he instead focused on the next battle. But, shit! This is making me feel even more pathetic. Looking at the profile of the cold-hearted old giant thinking, Ratchins felt no hatred, only frustration that refused to fade. Ratchin-sama, do your best. Shut the hell up! Why are you acting like this doesn't concern you? Expand territory. Matrix. Redefinition. A whisper spilling out from within his mouth, Aldebaran defined a new restart point. Finally escaping a predicament that had taken 29,221 attempts of trial and error to surmount, thinking that he had passed a checkpoint, he took a small breather. Long and deep, exhaling all the air left in his lungs, Aldebaran adjusted the position of his helmet. Sorry, I've calmed down now. No, not at all. Please, don't worry in the slightest. Rather, are you really fine with that sort of rest? If you like, Ye-chan's thighs are available for loan. Fucking cooked. Nah, I'm fine without borrowing them. They're super soft and spongy, you know. Fine. With a wave of his hand, Aldebaran bluntly refused Ye's alluring consideration. On the receiving end, Ye pouted her lips with a tss. But she likely did not care as much as her reaction implied. Those invitations of hers were a habit, and Aldebaran also always refused her. Even so, Ye's presence, never leaving his side, was a huge help, in the sense that she shouldered the burden. My headache's more or less subsided. Spilling those words, Aldebaran was relieved by the reduction of the headache induced by his mental state, including the fact that he had nearly been defeated. His battle against the felt armed forces had exhausted him far too much mentally. The result of diminishing that whittled down state was a near defeat that had just barely secured victory. Naturally, I can't do a mental reset in the middle of a fight. In this case, mental reset referred to how Aldebaran would use his authority to spend as much time as possible in absent-minded days, then gulp down poison and restart his matrix. Doing that over and over was the drastic move that aimed to restore his dead end of mental state, heightened nerves, and frayed mind. Damn. So bro literally just was like spawn camping his own spawns just to get more time to think. Bro, how old is this motherfucker? Ow! If he's experienced so many hundreds of thousands of loops, this man's mental age must be fucking crazy. But I digress. As long as he had an environment to settle down and a means to restart, it was a technique that allowed him to bring his heart to as much tranquility as he liked. But even if he settled his heart, there was a shortcoming in that the fatigue of his body and brain would simply not fade. In reality, due to the extreme accumulation of lack of sleep and fatigue, Aldebaran had been left with serious damage. This is a joke, but if I borrowed Ye's thighs, I'd fall in an instant. Does that mean you'd fall deeply in love with Ye-chan? Nah, I mean I'd fall unconscious. When you talk flippantly like that to me, it helps to distract me. Slowly shaking his head, Aldebaran forced back the weight of his body as he leaned forward. Currently, Aldebaran and his party were traveling west from the plane of the fierce battle, avoiding attention, and after completing a thorough safety check, Aldebaran had spent his time resting. But then again, even if he was spending his own time, it was not a considerable amount of real time. By the way, I'd like to consult you on this. But if I'm about to collapse, would doping the dragon's blood be possible option or no? Doping on dragon's blood? And fiddling with the metal fixtures in his helmet, Aldebaran raised an idea to Aldebaran. Along with Ye, Aldebaran had been a part of the personnel guarding the surroundings. And hearing Aldebaran's question, it prefaced, here's the thing. As to adroitly scratched his snout with his front leg. It's difficult to draw a reliable comparison between this dragon body and that exceedingly feeble original body of mine. But if you take undiluted dragon's blood, I think you'd probably just go bang. Bam. Bang. A different outcome from the Duchess and Pristella, huh? I became aware of this upon getting this body, but ignoring Natsuki Subaru, whose insides are a chaotic mess of curses. It's a miracle that the Duchess would endure it in her condition. I suppose there's the fact that she's close to the royal family. Even if we were talking about diluting it, I doubt I'd be fine to simply water it down. By the way, I kinda have it in my head that Shinobi ain't just well versed in poisons, but medicines too. So what about dragon's blood? It's a rare opportunity, so I'm intrigued. But Ye-chan's heart would never last if Al-sama became an even more frightening monster, so I'm against it. While an issue regarding feelings was pushed into the forefront, in truth, as long as one was not an expert, there was little hope that a deed such as diluting of dragon's blood could be carried out. They could not mass produce a final elixir so easily. The world wasn't so simple. I'll at least apply some healing magic on you. There. Passerby healed. We're in the same party. So it's not a passerby heal, but a dutiful heal. At Aldebaran's repose, the divine dragon unleashed an abundance of healing magic through its power. Unfortunately, he bore few external wounds, and it naturally did not grow Aldebaran a new left arm. But he did gain the consolation that he would be healed even were he to bear any serious injuries. Well, if he did suffer any serious injury, he would gulp down poison instead of waiting for healing. So it was quite literally just consolation. By the way, Vol-sama, may I ask you something? Vol-sama? Meaning me? Took me a sec since it didn't click at all. What's up? Your feelings toward Felt-sama, have they calmed down a bit? Clad in nonchalant air, Ye's question was obvious in its intent through the slightly tense atmosphere, so Aldebaran narrowed his eyes within his helmet. And having perceived the same thing, Aldebaran did the same. If by calm down you mean decrease, then it's actually the opposite. It's scary how much love is overflowing. The distance that keeps us apart only fosters stronger feelings. You're not so far away to say there's a distance keeping you apart. And I just can't get behind that affection. With a choice of words styled after the latter, Aldebaran poked fun at Aldebaran. But as the latter had emotions akin to the present at the time, those words were uttered. A considerable portion of what was likely how it truly felt. There we go. The intention of that also seemed to have been communicated to Ye. So she nodded with a, "Is that so?" And, "She really is a hindrance. That Felt-sama. Can we not get rid of her successfully?" "Ye, I'll say this now, but..." You're jumping to conclusions. I knew Vol-sama would have that sort of reaction, so I wanted to discuss a non-dangerous method. At worst, if Felt-sama happened to try to run away, me, Al-sama, and Vol-sama would all then be happy. Wouldn't it make you happy, Vol-sama? Even I wouldn't be particularly happy. Even though a source of distress would vanish? You've also been a bit of a source of distress for me. Oh dear, I've stirred the hornet's nest. With a facepalm, Ye responded in a manner of jest. The happy method she had hoped for was a condition brought up by Felt at the time she became their hostage. That it was fine to kill her if she tried to escape. It had become a habit for Ye to touch upon that. Felt and Aldebaran had made a promise that if the time came, there would be no hard feelings if she died. However, even that was a logical promise between Felt and Aldebaran. No, the divine dragon. It was not an end Aldebaran desired. Things had ended up with this relationship and way of doing things, but Aldebaran wished to return Felt to the royal selection safe and sound, so that she could vie for the throne in high spirits until the very end. Of course, judging by Aldebaran's reactions, the suspicion that befell Felt, which had been initially brought up at Lagunica's royal castle, had been all but confirmed. After all, This dragon's way too madly in love from the bottom of his heart for it to just be brushed off as an accidental resemblance. In reality, how much of the original personality seem like it'll come to the surface? The fact that this is a container, a dragon husk, won't waver. You don't need to worry about the original personality popping out all of a sudden and say hi. The little amount of residual feelings just strongly assert themselves, and it's sort of an image of strength of an assertion undulating. By the way, those residual feelings, how much do you remember? I like Farsa. I dislike Reed. Everything else is fuzzy. Damn, nobody fucked with Reed. Nobody. The first generation sword saint, huh? Don't bring up a legend so casual. It scares me. The first generation sword saint was a being whose name he heard often from the witch, but the tales told by those who knew him directly would paint him in worse light reputation-wise. I'm gonna get some water after this. Just now, a new testimony from the divine dragon's residual feelings had been added. So it was likely true that he had been a good-for-nothing. Okay, so far we've been vibing. So they're essentially just catching like a little bit of a break, getting some respite. Rom is trying to get a new plan for getting Felt back. I don't know where the hell they put Felt at, but I know she's probably not like that far from him because like obviously she's like their hostage. But I am curious because if Reinhardt and Satella are in essentially a stalemate, I wonder what I want to get like my Petra chapters, bro. I want to get my Petra explanations because I know that when she wakes up, bro. Imagine, oh my god, dude! Imagine seeing Subaru's book of, bro. Oh my god, her relationship with Subaru is it's gonna hit entirely different now. It like when he gets out, like assuming that Subaru's gonna get out, their relationship's gonna be completely different. Like low key, he just got back. Good. Anyway, Aldebaran would be lying if he said that the rest being fuzzy did not bother him, but... Oh, that reminds me. Yay, and the dragon me are both here with me now. But what about Little Miss Felt and the old man? Oh, the two of them are on standby over there. Aiko-sama's taking responsibility, keeping an eye on Felt-sama. Pairing those two together, that's the worst thing you could have done. I messed up. Ye-chan was careless. Ye seemed to have done so on purpose, and hearing her response, Aldebaran took a deep breath and stood up. Due to the working conditions he was giving Ye, he had to be willing to accept this prickling harassment. Oh, are you headed over to Farcel? I mean, Little Miss Felt? I'll come too. So long as you can't remedy that verbal slip-up, it's important that you don't meet her. Serves better for your favorability. Also, I want to avoid tipping the scales in her favor even further. Explaining so, he had Aldebaran sit back down as it attempted to follow along, and left Ye to discipline it to sit and wait. Ignoring her as she poked fun with it's a group effort. Aldebaran began to walk towards the place where Felt and Heinkel were located. Then having been unable to hear the strategy meeting, having been unable to hear the strategy meeting that had taken place in the tree shadows, Felt and Heinkel were waiting on the other side, around the large tree. Pops, I'll say this now, but you don't gotta make excuses to me. As soon as Aldebaran peered in, A rather harsh statement stuck his eardrum. At a glance, Felt was sitting with her back leaned against a large tree and stood opposite while looking down on her was Heinkel. From a filmmaking perspective, Heinkel looking down on the other party from a higher point had a psychological advantage compared to Felt in this case. However, uses, you say? What in the world would I need to do anything of the sort? Don't say such foolish things, you brat. In that case, stop looking at me all nervously. Your gaze speaks loudly. Who's... Indignation erupting from his throat, Heinkel stumbled over his next words, and so it seemed that the conclusion offered, from a cinematic perspective, would not be of any use. The two differed in both height and age, but even without quantifying anything, it was clear which of these two actors was on top. Also, so as Aldebaran happened to be present at the unpleasant scene, he pitted Heinkel. He would have preferred to conceal his breath and get out of there quickly, but... Aldebaran. And with the two of them noticing him around the same time, Aldebaran had no choice but to walk up to them. And choosing his words with a... Old man, quit getting involved with Little Miss Felt. You're at a disadvantage no matter what you say. What? So even you are saying that this brat's gonna talk me down? It's not a matter of who'd win or lose in a verbal argument. I'm saying the premise is botched to begin with. Old man, you've allied yourself with me, so from Little Miss Felt's perspective, you're an indisputable turncloak. Or rather, fundamentally, from anybody's perspective, you're a great enemy of the Kingdom of Lagunica, you know? I know. Even so, I'm... A bitter look strode about his face. Heinkel cast his eyes down, muttering those words as he opened and closed his hands. Wearing a tired expression and placed in a tiresome position, nonetheless, Heinkel was well aware of what sort of spiderweb he had reached his hand into. That this was a deed that would tarnish the honor of the House of Sword Saint, renowned in the kingdom, that would create an irrevocable disgrace. He knew. Still, even if it meant bearing notoriety that persisted unfading for the next several hundred years. You want the dragon's blood, Pops, in order to wake up your wife. Reinhardt's mother. You need that no matter what, right? Right. How do you? Just where do you think your son kept me detained at first? I'm well aware of that idiot's family situation. I also heard about it from Granny Carol and the others. Then, you should understand. It's necessary. I need the dragon's blood, and Aldebaran promised it to me. That's why I'm going along with this guy's plan. Like I said, don't make excuses to me. His desperate pleas met with such a response. Heinkel's words choked on a... Felt's answer had left him utterly hopeless, tearing Heinkel's meager conscience to shreds in a manner much more stinging than would have been accomplished via harping on him without any tact. Only it did not seem like Felt had aimed to choose the method that would wound Heinkel the most. To evidence that scratching her own head. Even I think it would be nice for Reinhardt's mom to wake up. I also get how you feel. Like you don't have any choice in the means to accomplish that end. Hence, I won't deny you, Pops. It's just a matter of your methods differing from ours. It's neither good nor bad. As Felt spoke with a single eye closed, it was clear from a single glance that her words had beaten Heinkel down. The definite discrepancy in their calibers had been revealed, and what was meant to be a follow-up became a kick to a dead body. If they were to converse any further, Heinkel's wounds would only expand. Feeling sorry that Ye's pestering seemed to have paid off, Aldebaran's patting him on the shoulder, saying, "Old man, that's enough. and dismissed Heinkel from keeping watch over Felt. Then, when Heinkel, his shoulders drooping. The translation seems a little weird. It seemed a little weird. Left the two of them. You're merciless, little Miss Felt. Though, you don't look the part. Are you perhaps angry? Ain't that obvious, idiot? Even now, I'm exerting all my self-restraint on the desire to kick your guys' asses because I got this crap on my neck. Saying that, Felt touched the fine steel thread wrapped around her neck. That which had also been brought up in the conversation with Ye and Aldebaran, and curved her lips into a smile. Sorry for the... Dude, there's like this... It's like one or two flies that I can't fucking kill because they're so damn small. But I digress. Let's see where we at. Her impudent... Wait. No. Oh. Wait. Oh, okay. Curved her lips into a smile and flashed her at... to flash her high canine. Her impudence was to the max, but for the most part, she was aware that her life was in their clutches. Of course, since they had not taken the life of even a single of her comrades, it was possible that she was making light of that level of effective threat that the steel thread posed, but I ain't gonna fall in the same ditch twice. It was not so much an announcement as it was an oath Aldebaran pledged to himself. The girl before his eyes had been raised to be strong in the slums. She was not just a royal candidate suspecting of being missing royalty, but a potential monster who had grown up being trained by Valga Cromwell. Yeah, I mean, fair. She was being trained briefly by Reinhardt and by Rom. I don't know if I'm gonna say Valga or Rom, but like either way, she's probably a lot more capable than we think. Give me one sec, chat. Wait. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I was just trying to find where I was. Okay, there we go. My bad. There was a sufficient likelihood that she had already enclosed, that she already enclosed as a monster, becoming and being more dangerous than Aldebaran could imagine. However, even were that to be the case, Aldebaran would no longer suffer defeat. Even if this is my final part to play, there's still meaning in my growth. The ability to handle Aldebaran, who was supposed to have been their primary strength, had gotten worse. Ye's insolent and mischievous attitude was intolerable. Heinkel would get discouraged on his own regardless of Aldebaran's intentions. He could not keep going without bringing along the uncooperative excess weight that was felt. Such was Aldebaran's journey. To put it bluntly, things had ended up quite different from his initial travel plan. But in exchange for his exhaustion, mental and physical alike, the unforeseen battle and tangible loss had stripped Aldebaran of his conceit, delivering onto him a lesson firm. From here on out, I'll draw out my territory until it reaches its utmost limit. Oh, he's fucking going in now. By using short-term updates of the Matrix to instantly respond to a pressing situation, he thought he could reduce the retroactive time rather than the number of attempts. And that in doing so, he would see long-term benefits. So just constantly updating the matrix. I mean, that's potentially a double-edged sword, because then you're not guaranteed to be able to get out of a certain situation, because you can get put in a really cooked spot and not really, well, I mean, he seems to have not been in too down bad of situations, but still. Let's see. Sorry, I got a random phone call. Let's see. But in a case like the most recent one, in which he was up against many enemies, that extreme level of matrix updating would cause the probability of being checkmated to skyrocket. If he continued to use it as he always had, then even against someone who did not possess Valga's ingenuity, it was completely possible for his path to be closed off by way of simple misfortune. If I let the intervals get too long, it'll be a chicken race between my brain overheating and my mind getting worn down. But even if my soul is completely destroyed, it's far superior to failing. From the outcast, Aldebaran had no prospect for beyond the completion of his plan. The Kataragi city-state, after arriving at the Grand Mogulate Geyser, and in that land, sorry, let me re-say that. After arriving at the Grand Mogulate Geyser, in that land, and accomplishing his objective there, he would clean up the mess he had made in his endeavors, and then end it all. He desired nothing more. In exchange, he would ensure that everything up to that point would be carried out to fruition. As Aldebaran hardened his resolve anew, Felt silently watched him with narrowed eyes. Aldebaran deliberately ignored her gaze, but faced with the fact that Felt, who resembled her in no regard whatsoever, not personality, nor facial features, nor physique or anything else, did indeed share the same eye color with Priscilla and nothing more. He experienced an awfully awful sense of discomfort. If possible, could you not look at me with those eyes? Don't be unreasonable. Sorry, but I've had these two eyeballs since I was born. I also don't like them since they stand out. Nah, I used to not like them. Now, I surprisingly think they ain't half bad. Why? I ain't gonna close my eyes. Leaning against the great tree, Belt folded her arms, sat cross-legged on the ground, and taken by her gaze and the strength of her will, he could understand the feelings of the many who revered her for her radiance. Right now, that radiance was the same to Aldebaran as the poisons tucked between his Damn! That's just like a fucking verse, though. Right now, the radiance was the same to Aldebaran as the poison tucked behind his molar. Only that radiance would not take Aldebaran's life. It only served to torment him. So, I'm pretty damn hungry. Got any food? You're being way too audacious. Sorry, but we don't have the time for a meal break right now. Traveling takes priority. That's some poor treatment for your hostage. We headed to that something hole in Kataragi you mentioned. Or we headed to that something hole in Kataragi you mentioned? The Grand Mogulate Geyser. No doubt that's our final destination. Only gotta make a bit of a detour. At Aldebaran's comment, Belt knit her well-shaped eyebrows with a detour. In response, as Aldebaran drew in his chin with a detour, he turned around to the scenery in the distance, amidst which it could not yet be perceived, and imagining that place, he spoke. Now's when they ought to be spread most thin. I'm gonna pick up a necessity for the plan. Fortunately, the detour on the way to their destination went smoothly. Unfortunately, the security was too dense to say that they were spread thin, but due to what was sealed on the other side, their protocols for crisis management being this thorough was almost reassuring. But then again, my security ain't enough to stop me. If it were to truly stop Aldebaran, as Felt's group had previously done, then surrounding and crushing him with several hundreds of people would have been the best course of action. For such a feat to be accomplished, at least a single order of knights would need to be deployed, even if it were the royal capital, a strategic point of utmost importance. Thus, to ensure that could be done, Aldebaran had taken measures in advance. I ended up needing to call it back right away, so it was 50-50 on whether I could place hope in a diversion being effective, but Aldebaran, driven to madness, assisted by the divine dragon Volcanica. It was not difficult to imagine the depths of the panic felt by those in the know. Once the information got out that the Sword Saint, or that Reinhardt, the Sword Saint, who had gone off to stop them, had instead become occupied facing the Witch of Envy, freeing Aldebaran and Volcanica to escape the sand dunes. They would have thought it the greatest threat to the nation since the Witch of Envy's rampage 400 years prior. For that very reason, the kingdom had no choice but to put on a display of all its strength to oppose Aldebaran, which was flying at heights as to easily attract attention, even if that meant leaving minimal armed forces at the royal capital. Thus, founded 407 times. Via that trial and error in the location he had sought to reach, Aldebaran had located what he was searching for. From the entrance door to the multi-layered mechanisms in the room, it was sealed rigorously as to not permit the slightest bit of interference. In reality, without any assistance, Aldebaran would have been unable to do anything regarding the mechanism before his eyes, regardless of having managed to reach this place, and thus would have ended up retreating in dejection. However, the current Aldebaran had the divine dragon's fey. I wonder how many holy gold coins it'd be worth. An article so rare that it resembled that the ensemble of merchants he knew would all have dollar signs in their eyes, estimating its value to be an abacus inside their heads. Using it as the catalyst, Aldebaran destroyed the sturdy mechanism through sheer force. Like nothing he had ever heard before, an aberrant sound of destruction akin to an iron bar being torn off the wall through brute force arose. The invisible wall that had certainly been present vanished, and Aldebaran stepped forth into the space. The space, not wide in the slightest, was even more cramped than the restroom in the burial mansion. With not a window nor an opening bearing an entrance door, the room was suffocating, akin to a solitary confinement cell. No, not akin. This place was most accurately described as a solitary confinement cell. After all, sealed within was unmistakably a sinner, a criminal, an evil unpardonable. By now, I've done enough to earn myself a death penalty 100 times over, but yet the room there indeed remained to accrete sin upon sin. As if to prove such, Aldebaran reached his hand out towards the blackness before his eyes. That was also the work of extraordinary principles. But this time the divine dragon's aid was not needed. Albeit different in essence, what laid there was similar to the quintessence of the witch's teachings, which Aldebaran had mastered in the end of rigorous training, which had made it seem as if he would drown in his own bloody vomit. Passing his intent through the fingertips held aloft, the subsequent moment, cracks ran through the whole of it, shattering. Into pieces akin to fragments of porcelain it fissured. However, no sound of its scattered shards rippled with the ground at its source. Instead, its composition unraveled, melting into the atmosphere. witnessing that run its course with his own eyes before Aldebaran. In place of the vanished black mass was a single human silhouette on the ground, down on all fours. Obey and follow me. If you do that, I won't kill you here. As Aldebaran quietly pronounced so, the silhouette made sure to let out a breath as it smiled. Nay, it sniggered, licking the lips of its mouth, of the mouth which sharp fangs protruded. How nice, so nice, very nice. Perhaps it is nice, surely it is nice, so quite nice. Certainly it is nice, because it is certainly nice, because our chest trembles at how nice it is. Gluttonous drinking, gluttony! Indeed, within the solitary cell colored in darkness, the existence liberated from the jet-black coffin, the Sin Archbishop of Gluttony, Roy Alfart, amidst feeling the freedom of hunger, jubilated. Hey, yo! How much more? Damn! Damn! Okay, so we got more. We got more. Hold up. Bro had to go get fucking Roy Alfart. Yo, he got a party on him though. Dude, he got a party. This shit's crazy. If you guys are enjoying this so far, leave a like. Don't forget, subscribe and hit that noti bell. Hit that noti bell for your boy. And I know you guys are gonna want to keep seeing more content for the ReZero. So let's keep it going. It was as if the world had come to an end, where heaven and earth were no longer separated, where there was no longer any distinction between bright time and dark time, where the lines between life and death blurred, and where the differences between the self and the other became unnecessary. Young master, and desperately raising her voice like so was Flam, who was one who never imagined capable of such an emotional outburst, whose gaze was fixed on the other side of the sandstorm, fixed beyond Pleiades' watchtower, where a great tidal wave of black shadows was surging from the distance towards the red-haired hero, the sword saint Reinhard van Estrella, who was struggling to fight it off, to stop it, to resist it, to repel it, all by his lonesome. Young master! While she had more faith in his strength than anyone else did, the girl also knew him well outside of his heroic appearance, cried out, her voice betraying her, in an attempt to deny the absurd reality that had suddenly befallen him. Flam's voice, as if screaming, had surely reached Reinhardt, who was challenging the dark demise. There was no way he could have failed to hear it. That was because Reinhard van Estrella himself had decided that he had to be that kind of existence. Despite that, Flam's anguished voice went unanswered, as the strongest of the sword saints in all of history was being exposed to a threat so ferocious that even a momentary lapse in concentration could be fatal. Countless black arms surged forward like literal waves, spreading out to fill everything in sight, continuously trying to crush their target with unstoppable destruction. With both of his nearly torn off arms, Reinhardt wielded the dragon sword and swung the legendary sword that cannot be unsheathed in place of his arms, breaking through the cage of black shadows that appeared to be inescapable regardless to the direction taken, smashing it to pieces. He repelled this over and over again, 10 or 20 times a second. Damn! Sheesh! Bro, that animation's about to go crazy in like 6 years. Until the sweat that had formed and the blood that had flowed left his body as steam. Reinhardt was completely absorbed in his task. That was the decisive contest between the two legendary beings, the Sword Saint and the Witch of Envy. Jeez, this is unbelievable. Seizing the reins as she jumped into the driver's seat, Meili, with her disheveled braids and clenched teeth, desperately attempted to fulfill a role she was unfamiliar to. Patrash, at the other end of the reins, was intelligent, and as such, Meili's handling of the reins was nothing more than a show. Nevertheless, Meili remained there to show her grit. With Garfield and Ezzo unconscious, Flam, whose attention could not be peeled off from Reinhardt's figure, and Petra, who had not yet returned from reading the Book of the Dead, the only one who was able to act normally there was Meili. Reinhardt's battle was a given, but it was no exaggeration to say that the lives of the entire party depended on Meili's slender arms. That's a bit of exaggeration, or rather, that's a bit too much. Many times in the past, Meili had been involved in a situation where someone's life was at stake. However, in many of those instances, Meili had been on the other side that took lives, and she had been in a position of power to decide whether to give or take a life in majority of them. The only time she had first used her abilities to protect someone's life rather than take it had been during the trial, when she had last been at the watchtower. And that situation aside, Meili's capabilities were probably only slightly more powerful than those of an ordinary person. With such little experience, the Witch of Envy would not have been a good opponent to clash with. Please, Patrash-chan, unlike with the Witch Beast-chans, I can't understand what you're saying, but everyone's in danger. I don't know what Patrash would sound like. Meili's appeal was conveyed through the reins, and Patrash bravely replied. The jet black ground dragon strode furiously, not heeding the adverse conditions of the sandy footing, pulling the dragon carriage with everything on board, running towards the end. If this keeps up, if it happened, at the moment she had believed they could make it through the sand sea on one sweep. For an instant, the earth seemed to bend and stretch as an incredible impact caused Patrash's feet to flounder off the ground, and the dragon carriage rose into the air along with all of its passengers. This was bad, and the word that came to Meili's mind was pinch. There was a pinch, a real pinch. When Subaru had been in a dangerous situation, he would often utilize the word pinch. It was easy to say, and once one got used to saying it, this word would keep popping into their head. But even if one were to keep chatting, pinch, the solution would not come to them nonetheless. The only sure thing was that once Patrash slid into the sand, that they would lose the divine protection of wind evasion, and that would allow them to leave the sand dunes successfully, or safely. Once that was gone, escaping alive from this place where the boundaries between heaven and earth had become unrecognizable would become utterly impossible for Meili and the others. What should I do now? Everyone, please. Onisan, help me. Everyone needs help. Indeed, it came to pass that that completely useless and tearful voice was put together with her vision nearly upside down. Leave everything to me, Meili. Right after she heard that cute and reassuring voice, Meili saw someone leap out from an overturned couch, using the driver's seat as a foothold, and proceeded to jump onto Patrash, who was losing her balance in midair. It was the oh fuck. Oh, I feel the tears coming. I feel the tears coming. It was a girl with a large bow and light brown hair that caught the eye. Petra-chan! As Meili cried out, Petra, who had leapt out of the carriage, clung to Patrash's neck in midair before forcefully sitting on the ground dragon's saddle, clinging on tightly as if biting her. She hugged it with all her might, using her entire petite body and made her appeal. Patrash, calm down and listen to my voice. Yes, good girl. Now, responding to Petra's voice, Patrash swung her long tail vigor. Damn it, dude. This it's choking me up to see her fucking back. Oh, we're gonna have to go into the next one. Forcibly controlling her position in the air with significant momentum. She landed on the sand with her toes thrusted forward into the ground, gracefully controlling the momentum of the dragon carriage, allowing it to land on the ground without interrupting the safety of the divine protection. She had managed to overcome that critical moment beautifully. It had all been thanks to Patrash's incredible responsiveness and the girl's skill in bringing that out. Meili-chan, are you safe and sound? I'm fine, Petra-chan. That book you read, I'm alright. More importantly... Cutting off her words, Petra narrowed her eyes, her round eyes, and glared behind her. Before her gaze was the battle where Reinhardt, defending Pleiades' watchtower, was the line that must continue to be defended at all costs, was holding back the Witch of Envy. Damn it. The Witch of Envy who tried to cross that line. The mere thought of the Witch of Envy was enough to cause shudders to surge up from the depths of her heart, and even Meili could not shake that fear that this reality had brought. However, Petra, still mounted on Patrash's back, said to Meili, "It'll be fine. Leave everything to me." Petra-chan? Leave it to me for now. We need to get out of the Augureus sand dunes. Let's go! To the loud declaration of Petra, as she rode the ground dragon speeding across the sand sea, Meili responded by repeatedly nodding her head in agreement, feeling a sense of mysterious reliability. Dude! She's basically Subaru right now, bro! She's basically Subaru! Holding on tightly to Patrash's neck and leaving the manifestation of the end that loomed behind them to Reinhardt, they ran, sight out of sand sea, or straight out of the sand sea. And while enjoying the illusions of being bathed in a cool breeze, Petra whispered to herself, "We have some work to do." Hey, yo! Bro, dude! This shit is so fucking good! This shit is so fucking good, bro! This shit is so good! This shit is so good! Oh my god! Yo, dude, this is so good! This is, bro, this shit is so fucking good! Oh my god, bro, what? Oh! We have some work to do, right, Subaru? Yeah, let's do this, with everything we've got. Feeling the voice and presence of the one she loved so dearly, whom she was unable to touch near her, Petra Lete raced as hard as she could, her heart burning with passion, to bring forth that wish, which must be delivered outside this sea of sand. She must give it her all. That shit was fucking peak. That shit was fucking peak. Bro. Ugh. Ugh. Bro. Oh my god. Dude. I am in fucking tears. That shit's fucking peak. It's fucking peak. It's peak. It's peak. Chat. Leave a comment. Like, tell me, did you expect her to wake up? Damn, dude. And like, cause when Meili was riding, and then like, you know, like it seemed like the worst possible fucking thing happened. That leave everything to me, Meili. That's the same shit Subaru said to Petra when he pulled up in Arc 4 to save her in the winning loop. When she was like, oh, like everyone, like, or she said everyone needs help, blah blah blah, like when Petra was like, someone please help, and then fucking Subaru came and was like, leave everything to me. This motherfucker be having the most diabolical entrances. Oh my god, this shit is too good. This shit was too good, bro. Petra and Subaru teaming up, and she knows, bro. I am starstruck. That shit. I was overcome with emotions, chat. I was overcome with emotions. Fuck. That shit's good, dude. Bro. Drop W's in the fucking comments for W fucking chapter. W fucking chapter. We're about to keep this shit going. I'm gonna record some more after this, but this has been your boy Zero, aka Black Natsuki Subaru, and bro, that shit was peak. That shit was peak. Petra about to be best girl soon. If you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well, so you can stay updated on when I make videos, content, drop more ReZero posts and uploads. And let me know if you guys have some ideas for content. Also, check the link in the description. That's going to have the link to our Discord channel. We do have a dedicated ReZero server now. So once you guys pull up, if you guys want to talk about ReZero in general, there's other cool people who love it just as much as we do. Go in there, yap with the boys. Oh, this shit's good. All right, I'll catch y'all in the next one. Until next time, peace.